Thank you. Okay, let me get that off my screen. Hello, everybody. Hello. I was all prepared to have my little introduction up on my screen, but I made so many pen and ink changes at the last minute. I'm going to have to read it off my paper, but I'm excited tonight. Thank you for tuning in. We have 33 people at this point. I'm Elizabeth Bowerman. I'm the president of CCCA, and it's great to see so many people joining in tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces in the little boxes there. My first duty is to let you know that the program will be recorded and that you can view it later or pass along the link to watch it. And we've heard the announcement to say the recording's in process, so we know it's working. And I'd also like to invite any of you that are not already on CCCA's friends list, please put your name and email address in the chat so we can make sure we get you on our newsletter list and keep you informed of our programs and events that are coming up. I'm very excited tonight about having Jennifer Walker as well as Sydney Beckner with us tonight. I also wanted to say that I saw both Jennifer and Sydney at a webinar yesterday about the Texas Hill Country Conservation Network's report on the state of the Hill Country. I encourage all of you to read this report. It's posted on the Hill Country Alliance website, and we'll put that link in the chat so y'all can get to it. You might want to download it and read it later. Jennifer might also mention some of it in her talk. Jennifer is a well-known and respected expert on Texas water issues and is the go-to person for One Water initiatives. Sydney is the water program manager for the Hill Country Alliance and will be contributing to tonight's program as well. But before I introduce Jennifer, let's make sure that everyone is tuned into the right Zoom meeting, all right? With a show of hands, how many of you like water? Okay. How many of you use water? Okay. And how many of you drink water and hope to keep drinking it for years to come? Okay, you're all in the right meeting. Okay, we can go ahead. Okay, Jennifer has over 15 years of experience focusing on statewide water policy issues with an emphasis on state and regional water planning, urban water management, and bay and estuary protection. Currently serving as the Deputy Director of the Texas Coast and Water Program at the National Wildlife Federation, Jennifer works out of Austin. She's chair of Austin's Water Forward Task Force, working to implement Austin's groundbreaking 100-year water plan that is focused on deploying One Water solutions to meet Austin's future water needs. Quite a project. Jennifer is a member of the Hill Country Conservation Network, the Texas Living Waters Project, and the Water Conservation Advisory Council of Texas. She serves on the board of the directors of the Alliance for Water Efficiency, a stakeholder-based nonprofit organization dedicated to the efficient and sustainable use of water. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in Ecology, Evolution, and Conservation Biology from UT, Texas. So with sincere thanks for joining us tonight, Jennifer, it's all yours. Take it away.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for inviting me. And I'm really glad to be here tonight talking to you all about One Water and water management in general. And I prepared some slides and I can go through them and then we can just have a discussion and talk through them. Let me share my slides here. That's not it. This is okay. Okay, let me get all these little Zoom boxes arranged properly so I can see my slides. All right, can y'all see them? Okay, I saw someone nod. All right, so Marnay and Elizabeth reached out to me and asked me if I could come do a presentation called One Water in Comal County. They said the goal was to learn how One Water provides for a sustainable approach for their region. So I've been working in One Water for quite a while. I did some specific looking at Comal County and what's going on there, and just want to kind of talk through what it is, what some of the benefits and why I think Comal County is poised to reap the benefits of One Water and why all the pluses y'all have going on. So let me advance it. Whoops. There we go. Okay. So like I said, what is One Water and what's the plan for Comal County and the role that One Water can play in the future of Comal County? And when I say what is a plan for water in Comal County, I mean, we're going to take a look at the state water plan and then how to engage and support One Water efforts and then some opportunities as well. So what is One Water? It's an integrated approach to manage finite water resources for long-term resilience and reliability. And the really great thing about One Water is the goal is to meet both community and ecosystem benefits. And that's one of the reasons that we are all in on that, because we want to meet community water needs, but also ecosystem water needs as well. They shouldn't be mutually exclusive. So the growing practice of integrated water management offers a way for us to grow as a region while protecting and respecting water resources at the same time. One Water strategies include the use and reuse of water to expand water supplies, the collection, treatment, and management of water close to its source, and the pursuit of all opportunities to minimize our overall water footprint. By using a One Water approach, water resources can be used together efficiently and effectively for the benefit of the community and the environment. This common sense approach to meeting our future water supply needs is an exciting and much needed opportunity for the region. And we, meaning National Wildlife Federation and Hill Country Alliance, are very focused on deploying these practices as a solution that will benefit the Hill Country. We invite you to join our efforts in that. And then we are also here to support you as you engage in your own community. So I offer both mine and Sydney's assistance in whatever you all decide to do. So how do things shift under a One Water paradigm? We'll walk through some examples, but under a traditional water management approach, the different streams of water, drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, and the responsibility for their management are taken care of in different departments of an organization that don't necessarily collaborate, even though all water sources are part of the same water cycle. I heard a lot about this today. I was at this national conference in San Antonio, Water Reuse Association, and a lot of talk about silos and different departments and how they're working together. And really, there's a lot of movement in that direction. And that really is kind of, one of the things that makes One Water work. So other departments or agencies that have an impact on how water moves through communities, such as Parks Department and city managers, are not typically brought in as collaborators on water supply management issues. Typically, integration between departments and managing these supplies are on a case-by-case basis. But with a One Water approach, integration is by design. Linkages are made between water supply, wastewater, and stormwater, as well as other areas of urban development. The management of these various water streams is coordinated and intentional, and benefits are clear. The costs are shared, and collaboration between city departments goes beyond the usual suspects. So it really is very intentional. So what else is different? Collaboration and public engagement, that first one there. There's a strong effort with One Water to engage the public in collaborative decision-making about the future of water supplies and community goals, rather than informing them once the plan is completed. So that is really one of the legs of the stool of One Water. With infrastructure, you take a critical look at infrastructure. Our communities can be built differently in order to facilitate the capture and reuse of water generated on site. We can work to reduce the use of potable water to meet non-potable demands, thereby reducing pressure on our core water supplies. For example, we don't water landscapes with drinking water from a centralized water system, and we construct buildings so that we can flush toilets with non-potable water that's been captured and treated on site. Stormwater. Stormwater under One Water paradigm is seen as a resource that can be harvested and used as a source of water supply. This can help reduce the intensity and severity of flooding, and this water can be used to meet non-potable demand or retained and released to support aquifers, healthy waterways, and biodiversity. management of water demand. Water demand reduction is a priority over deploying traditional water management strategies. So we would say, let's save water on an individual basis before we build new water supplies. By minimizing water demand in the first place, we may make it easier to meet the water supply needs of the community. This is a common sense approach and is the only way to meet the needs of both people and the environment. We cannot gain much ground without dedication to this tactic. Conservation tools are well known. They're being used with great success in cities like San Antonio. And we can learn from our peer communities and put programs in place to make a real dent in our per capita water use. And then once we've got that low hanging fruit for water conservation, we need to get creative about solutions and keep breaking barriers. Cities that have replaced all the leaking toilets and replaced all the aerators and done all kinds of things are now taking the next step and the next step. Water conservation, there's a lot more that we can be doing there. Technology, procuring, treating, and distribution of water to customers as a complex endeavor that traditional water supply management has really mastered. One Water asks us to employ diverse solutions, both technological and ecological, to meet water needs within a community with a resilient and locally sourced supply. This necessitates being innovative and trying new things. However, as we all know, with drinking water, failure is not an option. So technology and innovative methods should be employed with the utmost care, but should not be avoided. Coordination between urban designers, water management professionals, landscape architects, the community, and others will bring about innovative and creative solutions. And really, what I'm saying is we need qualified people that are going to run these systems, and that's very important. And we need to make sure that those folks are developed and are part of the solution. So what does One Water look like in practice? It can look like increasing urban green space to help reduce water runoff and mitigate flooding and slow water flow to recharge aquifers. It can mean incentivizing various forms of green infrastructure, such as permeable pavement, rooftop gardens, and connected wildlife habitats. Collecting and using water, such as air conditioning condensate and rainwater for landscape irrigation and flushing toilets. We can protect wildlife, rivers, and bays by using water efficiently and intentionally making available enough water to replenish watersheds. And we can create flexible spaces that can serve as a dual purpose. For example, a park that can be periodically inundated with water when necessary, and then allow people to use the park when it's not flooding. People love to be and relax and play alongside water, as you all know. In Comal County, I mean, this like the center of where that happens in a lot of ways. So this is an interesting schematic of a One Water system. So you have can y'all see my arrow on here? Okay, so you have your water supply, say, Canyon Lake. There's a water treatment system, and then there's the city, and it's treated and put out to the communities, and then it's put into the sewer system, and then it can be treated. So normally it'd be treated and then discharged back out to the river or somewhere else. This way, some of it can be recaptured and treated and sent back to be used to flush toilets and irrigate landscapes. It can be sent back for more advanced treatment and put back into the water supply or through wetlands, ponds. There's a lot of different ways, but basically it's a loop. There's a lot of different things you can do. You can capture here, you can capture stormwater and use it to infiltrate and recharge, say, an aquifer or water source. You could also capture it and let it filter in and treat it. You can capture water from the storm system. So there's this loop that happens, and you really look at all the sources of supply within your community and try to maximize the use of them, keeping in mind that the environment needs some water too. And we want to make sure that that's taken care of as well. But I thought this was an interesting graphic. Okay, moving on. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in Comal County. I had some fun looking at the state water plan yesterday, and you can look up stuff by county and by community, also by city. And this is all can be found in the state water plan. There's a really great interactive state water plan online, and you can search by WUG, which is water user groups. You can search by New Braunfels, you can search by county, or you can search by regional water planning group. Comal County is in Region L planning group. I serve on a planning group. I serve on Region K, which is the next region over, which is the Colorado River Basin. So what does this chart tell us? So Comal County is growing at a faster rate than the rest of the state. The population is projected to increase from 152,000 to 375,000 over the next 50 years. And that is not on this chart, but I just have it written down. So that's a over 100% increase, which is, what is that? 150% increase. So, and all this data is from the newly adopted 2022 state water plan. So that's where you can look it up. So water will be needed to meet this rapidly growing population. I think we all know that just intuitively. Let's unpack this table a bit. The purple bar is water demand. The amount of water that is needed to meet, let me use this little pointer thing. This is the amount of water that's needed to meet the population demand, and we plan in decades. So this is the decades that we're planning on. The blue one is existing water supplies. The red bar is something to pay attention to. This is water needs. So these are shortages. So even though this supplies is a little bit in excess of the needs, all this water may not be exactly where it's needed. So this red bar shows that there is a shortage in the area, but the green bar is important because this is a water supplies that will result from implementing water supply strategies. And I'll get to that in 1 second. So it looks like we'll all be well because this green bar is bigger than the red bar and all of these and all the bars continue to grow, but it's not so simple. One of the things to consider is that the strategy is what the strategies are, what these strategies, water use strategies and these green bars, what they are, how much they'll cost, how they'll impact fish and wildlife habitat. Are they resilient in the face of climate change? Is there a huge energy cost associated with them? You need to actually kind of think about what these strategies are. So there are some great municipal water supply strategies in the state water plan for Comal County. There's municipal water conservation. There's drought management. There's aquifer storage and recovery. These are all good strategies that will increase the region's resilience in the face of drought. However, this will make a lot more sense if I show you this slide. Don't try to read it. I just wanted to show y'all what it looks like. These are all the water management strategies. I was getting into this and forgot to advance my slide. Like these are all the conservation, municipal conservation, there's groundwater, there's other stuff. So, however, there's some strategies that are not so great and they come at a big cost. And it's important to understand that water supply decisions and future impacts, and most importantly, if there's a way to accomplish the same thing in a better way. I think that One Water helps us get there. So I encourage you all, and I'm happy to walk anyone through this, to take a look at the state water plan, to understand what the plan for Comal County is. To understand that one of the strategies for this region, one of the major strategies in the future is a lower basin storage project from GBRA and a major new reservoir in the lower basin all the way down at the coast. And the idea is to build an off-channel reservoir, capture that water and pump it back uphill to New Braunfels. That, I think that you all could do some really good reuse and on-site reuse and some really advanced One Water strategies for cheaper than you could probably do all of that. So it's really important to understand what the future plans for your region are. And then to you as community members to be able to say, this is not the future we want. We don't want to pump water uphill. We don't want to rely on an off-channel reservoir when climate change is a factor. We want some more resilient water supplies. So I just encourage you all to be educated about what the strategies are so you can go in and do your advocacy. And sorry for the tiny table. I just was thrilled that I could fit it on a slide, so I included it. Okay, so moving on. What are the opportunities for Comal County? And this was like a really easy list to make last night as I was thinking about it. So rapid growth is an opportunity. This region's grown really fast. And with the growth, comes the things that come along with the growth, huge investments, new schools, new commercial properties, new homes, the new, we may not like it. It may not be the choice that we want, or maybe we're super excited about it, but you all as a community have the opportunity to say, this is what we want the growth to look like. We want it to be water resilient. We want it to employ One Water strategies. We want it to serve our community. It's important to understand the constraints and pinch points for you all, like, our groundwater supplies being depleted, or endangered species, or expensive off-channel reservoir that we would prefer not to have to buy into. Another opportunity for you all is that you have engaged and informed citizens. And I'm talking about you all. I follow CCCA. You all have great information. You have great presentations, good speakers. You're really involved with and dedicated to your community. That is gold as far as like having change in your community and getting on a different path, taking the fork in the road that is not the off-channel reservoir, but is the One Water strategies. And you have engaged leadership. New Braunfels Utility has been working on a One Water roadmap for several years now. It's not completed yet, but this is envisioned as a multi-agency document. And once completed and adopted, that can provide a framework for engagement and advocacy around One Water. So if you have a One Water roadmap in your community that's been adopted, that is a tool to use in your advocacy efforts. And One Water, another opportunity is that One Water is adaptable and can meet unique needs. One Water planning can be applied at many different scales, from individual properties to larger developments and campuses. Communities can develop One Water plans that guide multiple aspects of their growth in a manner that is grounded in community values. Schools and public buildings, which are funded publicly, and so they're more likely to listen to the input of the public, can serve as demonstration projects. And that's a real positive thing. I think communities that we have talked to or engaged with have been really excited about having their public buildings serve as demonstration projects and as education centers. We have several facilities in Austin, the library, the new courthouse, the new permitting center, all have really cool One Water elements to them and have signage, and they're used as public education, the Wimberley School. And then the economics are on your side. One Water strategies are cheaper than most traditional water supplies, and they're certainly cheaper than pumping water uphill from the coast. Not to pick on that project, but that one especially has a big price tag. Oh, I didn't say that spreadsheet that I showed, that table with those strategies on it, just one page. The projected capital cost from the state water plan for those strategies is $2.8 billion for Comal County. And that's through 2070. So that's for the people in Comal County, $2.9 billion worth of water supply projects. So I don't know how you do that, if you divide it out by residents over the years, but it sounds like a lot of money. So going on, so 5 elements or 5 keys to implementing One Water. I wanted to talk a little bit about how folks can get involved in One Water. And like I said, this can be at different scales. It can be from one project like a school or a library to we're going to have a One Water plan for our entire community, and we're going to do a lot of things, and we're going to involve all the city departments. And I don't necessarily know how things work in New Braunfels, but I do know about the rivers and the springs and all of the recreational opportunities. It seems like there's a lot of opportunities around that. I know everything is local, and it all depends. It really is who's there and who's making decisions and who's involved in advocating. So the 5 keys to implementing One Water are planning with stakeholder input at the center. It's really important to define your goals, engage with end users, and think long-term. And then communication is important on goals, risks, and range of options. And this is if you're a utility, but even if you all are planning on doing something as a group of folks, how do you move forward? So you want to be clear about your goals and your risks. So you want to look at a range of options, focus on education like we're doing here tonight, engage stakeholders, and then, really pick strategies that you think engage the needs of your community. And you want community members to be involved. I heard about so many different One Water plans from different cities today in San Antonio at this big conference, and really, really talked about the importance of community engagement and prolonged community engagement, because decision makers change, people get voted in and out of office, lots of things can happen. But so you have to have that drumbeat from the community providing the kind of baseline lift for this kind of work. And then evaluation, you want to really be careful about how you evaluate One Water, whether it be on a per project or whole city scale. You want to look at the benefits, the long-term benefits, and not just the upfront costs. That is a trap that I see projects that are evaluated fall into a lot. They're like, well, it costs more to do this. And it's like, well, okay, but you're not looking at the long-term benefits. You're not looking at the long-term benefits for the school that is being built with One Water strategies, and they're going to pay a much lower water and wastewater and even electricity bill in the future, and they're going to have long-term savings. You're not looking at the savings for tenants in like a multifamily property that they're going to pay less in their water bill. And then this requires One Water is really about working together and breaking down silos. And like I was saying, you have your water and your wastewater managers talk to your parks managers, and you involve a community group, and you really work together. So it's about breaking down silos and being really intentional about that. So I'm going to go over a few examples and pass it over to Sydney, and we're happy to answer lots of questions and everything. And we'll just keep going here. So here's 3 examples about how One Water is being implemented in real life. So the Austin Central Library is 200,000 square feet, and it's equipped with various on-site reuse strategies. The building's connected to Austin's centralized reuse system, the purple pipe system, but it also generates water on site by collecting rainwater and AC condensate. And they repurposed an existing water treatment plant. It used to be the green treatment plant. They used the treatment wells from there, and they repurposed them as places to store water that have been captured, the rainwater and the AC condensate. So these systems provide 90% of the water that's used to run this building. The other 10% comes from the centralized potable water system, because it's like water faucets and things like that. But the vast majority of the water needed to run this building is non-potable water, toilet flushing, AC makeup water, landscape irrigation. So they have a 700,000 gallon tank where all the water is stored, and then they pump it to a cistern, and then it's used to in the building. I've seen this system a couple of times. It's really actually my takeaway the first time I saw it was like, wow, this is really simple. I thought it would be really complicated. I mean, the treatment systems come pre-made on a skid, and it's in a vault in the parking garage. It's not that big. It's about as big as this room I'm in. Our next example is a Credit Human building, which opened not too long ago in San Antonio, and we went and toured this one too. And in addition to being just a really beautiful building filled with artwork and really cool architecture, they have a lot of really great energy and water efficiency systems on it. So this building is also 200,000 square feet, and it has 500 employees working there. It's on 3 acres. So they have rainwater harvesting, AC condensate that provide non-potable water. The water is stored in 140,000 gallon cisterns, and they're also connected to the centralized reuse system from the city of San Antonio's backup supply. This facility, 97% of the water that is used to run this building comes from the water that they harvest on site and then the centralized reuse system. So 3% of the water is potable water from the Edwards Aquifer. So they're greatly relieving the pressure on the Edwards Aquifer by reusing water. This building also has a lot of other really cool energy efficiency features on it, and the owner, I guess the champion of this project is actually the CEO of Credit Human. So he has really invested in this, but he has made clear he's not investing in something that is going to cost money. This is going to save money over the long term. They're already saving a ton in utility bills over what they would pay otherwise. So, and they're continuing to do that cost benefit analysis, which I'm really grateful for and think will be really great and instructive. But if you're ever in San Antonio, this is over by the Pearl. This is a really cool building to visit. And then our third example, of course, is the Wimberley Blue Hole Primary School, the Wimberley One Water School, as it's known. This school is a result of robust community collaboration in service of reducing impacts to the Trinity Aquifer. The One Water School reduces impact on local groundwater resources by 90%. The school is an intentional learning lab and is really designed to inspire and teach students. They have 200,000 gallons of storage for rainwater, and they have a 78,000 square foot roof, and they collect 600 to 1,300 gallons per day of AC condensate. This is all treated and they use to flush toilets and provide irrigation for landscaping. And then the green stormwater infrastructure slows runoff and decreases erosion and helps infiltration, reducing non-point source pollution to the nearby creek. Bioswales, rain gardens, and walkways with permeable pavers are incorporated throughout the campus. So Blue Hole Primary's campus reduces the water consumption footprint compared to conventional approaches by about 90%. And the annual cost savings relative to standard construction and centralized wastewater service. So if the building had been built just kind of as designed and hooked up to the centralized system, they are expected to save between $30,000 and $50,000 on utility costs per year. And the total cost savings over 30 years is expected to exceed $1 million. And they're expected to conserve 237 acre feet of groundwater. So Robin Gary at the Wimberley Valley Watershed Alliance is really, her kids actually both go to the school, but she's very focused on gathering data to show the long-term impacts of the school, of how much water they're saving on how much money they're saving on utilities, how much water they're saving over time, what the positive impact to the Trinity Aquifer and Jacobs Well are. So that is another really great testament that can be information that you can use, and Sydney and all of us can use in our advocacy efforts to try to get some more demonstration projects. There is a super cute video by second graders at Blue Hole Primary. The GT program made a video about the 8 elements of the One Water School for their class project last year. And we will provide a link for that for you all. It's 5 minutes long, so I didn't want to show it, but it's cute as heck. And kids do a really good job explaining it. I'm going to pass it over to Sydney so she can talk about One Water Schools in Comal County.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, if second graders can explain it, then I think we all can. So great. Yeah, I want to talk to y'all about the opportunity of One Water Schools in Comal County. I have actually been working with school districts, trying to connect to school districts to encourage them to consider building One Water Schools. I was actually in Fredericksburg last week talking to some school board members who are interested in building their new middle school to be a One Water School, and they have some kind of realistic questions and reservations that come up commonly, so like how to pay for it and stuff like that. And yeah, Jennifer and I can definitely help you ourselves or connect you with people who can answer your questions, and we can talk more about that. But I know that both Comal ISD and New Braunfels ISD have new bonds and plans for new schools as Yales County is growing. So yeah, schools just represent a really great opportunity to be a model for development for your community. A type of development that treads lightly on natural resources. And as Jennifer mentioned before, like, your community has the opportunity to define what you want your growth to look like. So you have that, feel empowered to tell your city council and your county commissioners and your school boards that this is really great stuff, that not all of it costs that much to implement. And there's also funds to help. But yeah, there are several benefits for schools. So obviously the educational opportunity for the students themselves who attend the school, they can get them interested in science, some STEM classes and stuff like that, but it's also for a community. I mean, a school is a great place to draw in other members of community. Different events can be held there. And if you design a school to showcase these One Water elements and to be educational, that can really just kind of compound and amplify the message. Jennifer mentioned economic savings. So just saving wastewater and wastewater service savings for the building are dramatically less than for a traditional building. There are likely some more upfront costs, dual plumbing, and all of that for depending on what type of One Water strategy you want to implement. But once the building is operating and capturing its own water and reusing its own water, it very much reduces overall costs. And then it also, environmental. Jennifer mentioned all the 3 examples dramatically reduce the amount of water they use from local aquifers and water sources. And One Water definitely, it can be as simple as just planting native landscapes. I mean, that is plants that are drought tolerant and don't need to be mowed and all of that. So you're saving money and all of that. So, and while I've been talking specifically about schools, I do want to mention that all types of buildings obviously can be utilize these One Water approaches. And something that at HCA, we kind of, a question we ask and throw out a lot is, wouldn't it be great if all publicly funded buildings throughout the Hill Country utilized One Water? Or had the goal of being water neutral. I think that is something that is possible, and it just takes people pushing for that and advocating for it. So something else that I was reminded of before this meeting started, Elizabeth had mentioned that there are obviously schools in the works in your county, and some of the plans have already been drawn up. So we haven't quite mentioned it yet, but we have this, sorry, my background's all weird. We have this like One Water in the Hill Country guidebook that Hill Country Alliance and National Wildlife Federation helped put out. Elizabeth has some copies, but in creating this guidebook, there were several interviews done with the engineers featured. There's an image of it. It's the one on the far, I guess, right. Several of the engineers in this guidebook mentioned that, the projects like this don't, unless the client asks for something, the engineers typically just give you the low cost, business as usual, what we do kind of options of things. So it really is on the client, the customer, the school district, the city council to push the engineers, ask the questions, feel empowered to look to ask for example projects and see what else is out there, because when it comes down to it, there are the really highly engineered types of One Water. So taking black water and making it drinking water, that's a super engineered system, but the technology does exist. And then there's the really simple permeable pavers, rain harvesting barrels, things that like you and I could go to the hardware store and put up a system like that. So it doesn't take a lot of engineering to do. It just takes someone asking the engineer to do it. So that's something I would encourage y'all, is to feel empowered to push for these types of opportunities and approaches. So that's all I have. These are some great resources from the Texas Living Waters Project that HCA and NWF are a part of. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sydney. So I want to make sure y'all know about these resources. There's 3 of them, and I didn't include the State of the Hill Country one since we released it yesterday, and I just didn't put it on the slide, which was silly. But let me tell you about these 3 sources that we have. One is Ensuring One Water Delivers for Healthy Waterways. This really focuses in on the role that One Water can play in keeping our rivers and streams and springs healthy, where we either decide to do no harm or make it better. Both scenarios are better than making it worse. And it also really goes through in detail a planning framework. So if your community is doing any kind of One Water planning, the planning framework is really good and robust in here. We worked with the Pacific Institute and the Meadows Center on this report. National Wildlife Federation did. The planning framework is very good in that. The next report is Rapidly Scaling Water Reuse Across Texas Using Property Accessed Clean Energy, or PACE financing. This is really what I did a presentation on today at the Water Reuse Symposium. But this is about how can we use this program, PACE, to finance on-site reuse systems? And the answer is yes. This is as you say, like to a developer or someone decides to put an on-site reuse system on their building, it's going to cost more than it would be without this system. So PACE is a program that can be used to finance that, and it actually gets paid out over the life of the loan or the property, and it transfers with the property if the property owner decides to sell it. But it is a way to kind of blunt those upfront costs, and it means you doesn't end up costing more. What happens is you're only eligible for PACE if the cost of actually doing this, putting the system in, if the water savings from the reduced water use, if they even out. So you have to actually have no net increase in the cost. So that's a really cool program for that. And then of course, Sydney talked about the One Water in the Texas Hill Country report, and that really is filled with case studies of different types of One Water projects around the Hill Country and the professionals and practitioners that planned and or built them. So it's a great way if you're in your community saying, and you're talking to school and they say, I don't know how to do this. And you go, well, let's see, I see in here that O'Connell Robinson knows how to design schools like this or whatever, so it's supposed to be meant to be a helpful guide for folks. And that is the end of our presentation, and we're happy to answer questions.
There's a question in the chat, Jennifer.
Yeah, so we talked about this today. Are there any PACE-like programs for residential renovations? So PACE is for commercial and industrial properties only. It's not for residential. They do have PACE for residential in some other states, but it is not in Texas. But the cool thing about PACE in Texas is you can use it for water efficiency. It's not just energy efficiency. But yeah, they do not have this for residential programs, but many utilities have programs for residential, but probably not at the level of PACE. And I can stop sharing this so people can see each other.
Hey, can I just jump right in? This is Rachel. Hi.
Hey,
I
Rachel.
don't actually have a question. I just wanted to say what a wonderful presentation that was, and especially how useful it is to be empowered to talk to our local people and to know who to talk to and how to talk to them and what resources we should look into. And I hope that we can replicate this presentation all across the Hill Country and empower all of the Hill Country. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. I really, really do believe that groups of folks can make change. The reason that we started the Water Forward Plan in Austin was not like part of my job, although my job and working on water gave me some expertise to get involved. But at the end of the really deep drop that we had starting in 2011, in 2014, so the Highland Lakes that serve Austin were very low. They're like only 33% full. And Austin was looking at implementing, oh, thank you, Karen, for putting State of the Hill Country in there. Austin was looking at implementing some emergency water supply measures, and City Council put together a group. They appointed a citizens task force, and I was one of them, to recommend strategies. And so we put together some strategies. This was like a 6-week assignment. It was like, okay, what's going to happen if it doesn't rain? But one of the recommendations we made was that Austin really needed to develop an integrated water resources plan, that we didn't have one. We adopted the plan, and City Council adopted it, and it rained and the lakes filled up. And so we didn't have to do any of the emergency stuff. But Austin went ahead and went forward with the development of the integrated water resources plan. And many of us that were involved in that task force stayed involved and are continuing to be involved through the development of that plan and now the implementation. So that all started with a group of citizens making recommendations. It didn't come out of the water utility. I mean, the water utility has gone all in and been really great, but the initial recommendation came from a group of citizens. So, you never know what like seed you plant, what it's going to turn into.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to address a few, I was typing, but I typed too slow. Marnay asked a question, if I've talked to Comal ISD leaders. I have not personally. I believe maybe some partners have, Jennifer, or was that with New Braunfels ISD? I know.
I don't know. I think maybe I know that there's been conversations with Lake Travis ISD.
Yeah.
Fredericksburg, Wimberley, of course.
I thought maybe Nancy Pappas at the headwaters at the Comal with NBU might be, but I think maybe that's New Braunfels ISD.
I was just going to say, I think Cliff Kaplan, who's the CCCA board member, may have talked to them.
Okay. I will follow up with Cliff. Yes, if no one has made contact, I am happy to reach out to Comal ISD officials or employees, whatever they're called. Definitely. And if anyone has any contacts on the board, that would be great, or the superintendent, please send them my way. That's always a helpful, someone sent me to you. And then Helen, you also asked a question that I think Jennifer would definitely be able to answer, but I can take a stab at it first. That I mentioned funding for One Water projects. What are they? So there are, let's talk just public entities, public government and schools. For them, I believe there's definitely the state revolving funds through the Texas Water Development Board for clean water or drinking water. Those also, any project, you can also apply specifically to something called the Green Project Reserve, which is for, kind of green projects. And then there's also economically disadvantaged areas programs. So programs that a certain amount of the population is qualified as economically disadvantaged can apply for those. what else? There's Lone Star. Is Lone Star something, Jennifer?
Lone Star is for public. So schools would use Lone Star. Lone Star is like PACE, but for public entities. It's a revolving loan program, kind of the same. It's the same concept as PACE, kind of run the same way. Whereas PACE is for private entities. Yeah, so there's a huge amount of resources coming into Texas through the bipartisan infrastructure bill. The guidance for that was just released today. There's going to be $2.9 billion coming into Texas over the next 5 years for water infrastructure, water supplies, different much through the clean water and drinking water SRF programs. There's going to be a lot of other programs that are getting big infusions. So this is going to be a time, and we're still trying to wrap our arms around it because it's a lot, but there's going to be more resources for water over the next 5 years than there has been in a really, really, really long time. And so we are working on figuring out how to best try to operationalize that, connect people to technical assistance. How do you turn your plans and dreams into funded realities? These are all questions that we ask ourselves, and we're working with a few communities and trying to develop some best practices. There's a lot of folks trying to figure this out, but it is just starting. Like I said, the guidance was released today, but just a couple hours ago.
And I'll add that we are very interested to see these funds go to other communities that aren't just the big cities who have all the staff on hand and have done these kind of projects and requests before, so they have it like easy to go. Like, we really want to help smaller rural communities get to these funds too. And yeah, so we're happy to help. I've kind of gotten behind on questions, so I don't know.
Do you, Elizabeth, do you guys want to go through questions and ask me and Sydney, or you just wants to go through the chat? How do you want to run this?
If it's easier for you two to do it, go, and you have kept up with them, but I'll go back now and see if there's anything we've
Yeah, we
missed.
can just go through an order here. So Karen, I mentioned the state of the Hill Country report. Karen Ford put the link in. So thank you, Karen. And yeah, and we'll just keep going there, but that's a great, it also was released. Well, we had the webinar yesterday, it was released last week, but it's got a lot of great information in it about land use patterns, the amount of land that's been protected, water use, spring flow. So there's metrics in it. And so the idea is that we have these metrics that we can use for these 8 different indicators, from night skies to land protection to spring flow, that we can use to kind of guide us and use as benchmarks. And we can see where we're falling really short and try to do better. Maybe we can find out where the examples in the region are, but it really is, we're trying to pull together a bunch of data and present it in a really visually compelling way that we can all understand and use it as a tool for our advocacy efforts. So I encourage you all to check that out. I can do this next question, Sydney. So how are urban planners and developers, how open are they to these concepts and perhaps tax breaks to these initiatives? So urban planners and developers, I mean, I guess the answer is it depends, as with anything, right? But there is a collaborative that I'm part of called it's from the American Planning Association. It's a water and planning network, and was the first conference right before COVID hit us. But it's really kind of trying to bring together the urban planners and water planners and find out kind of where we overlap in that Venn diagram of planning, and how we can support each other with and develop better urban plans, and then better water plans that bring those in. Developers can absolutely be part of that. I think we have a lot to learn in both spaces. And then tax breaks. I mean, yeah, folks love tax breaks. I think that's up to local jurisdictions and what they can do, and how to use them as a carrot in order to entice people, or encourage them what they want to do. That is a local decision, is absolutely, something that folks can do. I think Commissioner Shaw was talking a little bit about how they try to use some of those approaches in Hayes County, since they don't have development authority, to get people to do some conservation oriented developments. Anything on that, Sydney?
No, I think
Okay.
covered it. The next question from Jim is about a study that said the most cost-effective approach is to develop targeted incentives to reduce the water usage of the biggest consumers. Do you see this as different for Comal County as a whole? What would be your top priorities among approaches?
Yeah, well, I've seen that study. It's been a while. And yes, I mean, that is absolutely a great strategy to target incentives towards big customers that use a lot of water. That's water conservation. And that is something that should be done. It's not the only thing that should be done. I would say in the more urban areas of the county that there's probably more of those high water users, but I don't really know. I mean, that's the kind of thing. My understanding is that New Braunfels utility service area is pretty big and goes outside of New Braunfels proper. So there may be high water users in the area. But I think that that's a great strategy for Comal County as a whole. For any county to look at high water users and to kind of understand why they're using that much water, and if there's some reduction in that use that could be done, and what the cost benefit for that is. Is it worth, say, if it's a groundwater district, to make an investment to get some savings in order to preserve some, in order to reduce pumping on an aquifer? So I think that is a great strategy. It's one of the strategies. I will say I thought that was a great strategy, but there's other ones that we should be looking at too. And I would say it might be the most cost effective, but once you go to those folks, then what do you do? As you saw from the graphs that I showed, we're looking at thousands of acre feet of water and big water supply projects. So this is definitely a piece of the pie, but it's probably not, a lot of people are in that pie.
Mm-hmm.
I see a question here that I think is just to me, Sydney, but it says One Water is a great concept and appears to be well suited to population centers, schools, and urban centers. What about the rural and highly distributed populations like Western Comal County? Mm-hmm. So great question. The solutions and the strategies would be very different in a rural and highly distributed area. And, really looking at those areas, a lot of the strategies may already be in place. If you're capturing rainwater, if you have a septic system, so you're not having to worry about discharging it into a pristine stream or something like that. Oh, sorry, my computer's flashing something at me. I think that some of these strategies that we're trying to do in urban areas that are larger scale, that are novel and innovative, are the way that things have been done already for a while in some areas. So I think the idea is to understand, like in Western Comal County or wherever, is there a water stressor? Is there a driver to look at water, that you need water supplies, or do you have water treatment problems? Are there some solutions that can be offered by One Water? If there's not any problems and things are going along fine, then maybe it's not the time for that. It's a matter of understanding where you are in the water supply and wastewater chain.
Mm-hmm. And I'll jump in here on that one too. About being in the western part of the county, it's still a good opportunity to try to implement One Water techniques in something like schools, which is probably one of the biggest single brick and mortar conglomerations of toilets and sinks and water and air conditioning condensate, those would be excellent places to do it. One of the few, as you point out, one of the few places where it could be implemented in a rural area.
Yeah.
Sydney, you listening? That's
Um,
Comal ISD, and we'll try to get you some contacts out there so you don't have to cold call them.
yeah,
Great
no, I
idea.
appreciate it. I appreciate
And
it.
she'll want to bring some members of the community along with her too, most likely.
I'm
So-
gonna drag someone along with me. But I wanted to add to that. I think an advantage that rural communities have is that a lot of these one water approaches are like the easiest to implement in a new build. So it's kind of, city of Austin and these really built up urban areas are kind of having to go back and retrofit what already exists. But in rural areas, you have the opportunity now to get ahead of planning. So this growth is happening. So get ahead of it and be proactive instead of reactive, like most things always seem to be. So silver lining to that.
So the next one, I think, is the city of New Braunfels is undergoing a rewrite of their development ordinances to create a unified development code. Have one water approaches for new developments been raised to city staff as a possibility for the unified development code, which is what I think UDC stands for. I don't know. That's a good question. And this is one of the areas too that when, the One Water Roadmap, which I believe is coming, the way I understand it is that there's going to be a One Water Roadmap that's going to come from New Braunfels Utility. The city of New Braunfels will adopt it. That should guide some of that. There should be some principles in there. I haven't seen it for a while, but it's pretty high level. So it doesn't like go down to the detail of a unified development code, but it should follow the principles of the One Water Roadmap. But I think that that's something that's worth engaging the city about and bringing that up and seeing and providing some examples from other cities. Like I believe Bernie has some good examples. Austin has some that may or may not be caught up in a lawsuit or something like that, as we do in Austin. But yeah, so there's find some good examples out there. Let's see. Jane and Joe ask, does the slide I showed with current water resources and future needs take into consideration inevitable drought? Yes. So that's a good point. I should have mentioned that. The state water plan, there's a lot that goes into it, but we look at existing water supplies, we look at water demand. So the supplies that we look at are the amount of water supply available during a repeat of the drought of record. So we're expecting history to repeat itself. And then the demands, the water demands that you compare that to are dry year demands. So not a drought of record, but a dry year. So you're putting higher than usual water needs against matching it up with a lower than usual water supply. And that's kind of like the built-in safety factor on that. So yes, but there could be a drought worse than drought of record. Climate change is real, and we are seeing outliers happen. So while it is a good corollary, it is a drought, it's considered to be a drought of record plan. I think that really doubling down on on-site reuse and some of these other strategies give us some more kind of redundancy and resilience. Any data on fire stations getting on board?
Ooh.
Interesting question. No, I don't have any data on that. I don't, but I like that question. I've heard anecdotally about like rainwater harvesting for potable water supply for like a subdivision, but they've had to have a well on site for fire prevention. That, you don't have enough rainwater storage for that. So they actually have to drill kind of like a traditional groundwater well in order to have fire prevention. But yeah, I don't know a lot about that. That's a good question, Larry. You got me stumped. Anything else?
Any other questions, anybody? Wow, well, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Sydney. This was a fantastic program. I learned a lot and I've done a lot of reading on One Water. I'm really excited. I've made 2 pages of notes and got a whole list of people to contact, get some board of directors from the school boards to use as contacts to get Sydney in there. I
Yeah.
appreciate you so much and all the expertise you two have developed and the way you're helping us all spread the word and get on board with these concepts. Well done.
Yeah, and I
Thank
can
you.
put my email in the chat, and Sydney can probably do the same. If you have questions, I'll try to get back to you. Sometimes I'm a
Thank-
little slow on email, but do my best.
Thank you. And while you're doing that, I will remind everybody that if they will put their email in the chat, put their own names and emails in the chat, we can put you on our Friends of CCCA list so that you get the announcements about our future programs and events, and you'll get our newsletter every 2 months and keep up with this, and you'll know about our other primary presentations that are going to keep Comal County moving forward. So if there are no other, I think things popping. Oh, good. Emails are coming in. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll leave the chat open for a while. And if anybody wants to pop in with something casual or informal, please do. But otherwise, will turn off the recording and close the program officially. And sincere thanks to Jennifer and Sydney again. You guys take
Yeah.
care.
Thank you very much.